Thank you, Speaker. As candidates, the most frequent question we get asked when we're at the doors is usually, what are your priorities? That's the question we get asked all the time. And the reason, I think, that people ask, what are your priorities, is that you can tell a lot about the person's values, their principles, in what they prioritize. And I would go out on a limb and say that when you are prioritizing inconveniences over injustices, that tells us a lot about what that side of the aisle prioritizes. Athenian lawmaker Salome said, "Wrongdoing can only be avoided if those that are wronged feel the same indignation at it as those who are not." I hope we were listening. I hope that there is some understanding about the kind of injustices that exist in our society, the systematic barriers that exist in our society that are making it so that people are pouring out into the streets, protesting, risking their lives as they shut down highways. And I hope that as lawmakers, we are taking the time to actually understand how that process is done. And as a mother of a 15-year-old who's teaching her daughter how to drive, I wish I had the same privileges as Representative Matt Dean to only worry about teaching her how to be safe driving on a highway. Because as Representative Ray Dean said, I have to worry about teaching her how to interact with a police officer, how to exist and live in a world as a young Black woman, as a Muslim girl. And when people talk about the fears that their daughters are experiencing as they're interacting with protesters who Representative Flanagan and myself have marched with, who are singing songs, holding hands, because if you have been paying attention, that is what these protesters often are doing, holding hands and singing songs. There's nothing fearful about them. Standing here talking about fearing people who are holding hands and singing songs and saying to us that we don't know what fear looks like, and not taking the time to understand how naive and tone deaf that might be to look down as a survivor of war, as someone who grew up in this country post 9/11, as a Muslim woman who wears a hijab every single day, who has to live with the words that are uttered by people in this room who say things like, we should be afraid of Muslims infiltrating our election process. The weight that hateful words like that carry, the fear that sends down to people like me and to my daughter and to my sons who visibly every single day show up in this society as an other, as someone to be feared of, as someone who is not American. I want you all to understand the privilege that you have to be seen as a person, to be seen and acknowledged by your name, and not to be described as the black man, the black woman, the Muslim girl, the hijabi, the terrorist. To not be standing in the elevator as the president of the United States and have someone clutch their purse because you are seen as a black man in that elevator. To understand the real fears that we walk around in every single day, knowing that people who pass us by the street just do not see us as a person passing down them by that street, but they see us as this and that. To know that when you are a John and you're white and you commit a crime, it says John committed a crime. But when you are John and you are black, it says a black man, a scary man, has committed a crime. No one gets to know that you are John and you are just a man. To know that when you are white and you commit a terrorist act, that they just say 2 men walked into and bombed a mosque. They would never write 2, 3 white men came to terrorize a mosque and have committed a terrorist act. This is the kind of injustices that get to be played out in a country that is built on systematic inequality. So some of us do not have the privilege of just looking at this and saying, we need to create this policy because it makes sense. This is illegal, so people shouldn't be doing this. Some of us have to understand the nuances of why this is bad. And the last time I spoke, I talked about how in our committees, when we heard this bill, and the months and the year that has followed, we have not heard from one single county attorney, one single police chief. We have not heard from any mayors. We've not heard from any city council members. And it's not because they don't have the political willpower or the political bravery. It's because they have common sense. They have the common sense to know that this is not necessary, that the laws already exist, they are adequate. They have been able to charge people, they have been able to take them to court. There are laws that are already in the books when somebody commits a crime. But the other thing that they understand is everything else that goes along with what happens when we increase these kind of penalties. The cost that's associated, that's passed down to taxpayers because we are prosecuting people longer. The cost that's associated with this because we might incarcerate someone for this. That's what they understand. So I hope you're going to send a clear message about what your priority is as Republicans, that you are going to prioritize injustices, that you are going to fight alongside people in fighting injustices, that you are not going to further injustices by fighting against inconvenience. Thank you.